Welcome back to Beyond Basic Phonics, English Morphology 101. And we are doing this lesson 35 with Don Potter, and we're doing Romance Roots number 3. And we have two groups of related roots here, A and B. So we're going to look at A very quickly. We have stru and struct, which means to build. So we have stru, we have an instrument, and so we have the prefix in here, and it does not mean not in this particular instance, but in, and so in building or in to build. So an instrument is something you use to build something. It could be a hammer. In the study of roots, we would use a dictionary as an instrument for improving our knowledge of English words. Then instrumental, that could be like in a band, and if they sing a cappella, there's no instrument, but if they play an instrument, a guitar, piano, or whatever, that's called, the number's called instrumental. And then instrumentation. When they add instruments to an airplane, that's called instrumentation. Struct, you have structure. So when you build a house, you have a structure. You have something you've built. Structural is used, for example, if I said the building has structural integrity to withstand an earthquake. That means that it's made of very, very strong material. And if there was an earthquake, while other buildings might be destroyed and people might be hurt, people in this building, this structure, are going to be safe. Construct, here you have with, and then the root build. And so construct means to build. And when you build something, you have a construction, noun form. And if the tornado destroys the house and you decide to go back and rebuild it, that is reconstruct, reconstruction. After the Civil War, that era of time was called the Reconstruction. Next we have instruct. This is very good. You got in and build, and so instruct is to teach somebody. So I am working to teach you the Romance roots so that you can read a lot more words without necessarily having to look them up in a dictionary. Become intuitive at it. And so I'm providing instruction, the noun form. When I instruct, I'm giving instruction, and I am the instructor. And so you have OR on the end, which again is an agent. So you have your prefix, root, and suffix. And the accent lies most commonly on the Latin root. And IVE, here we have instructive. And that means the lesson was really good and you went away, you'd really learn a lot. So it was instructive. Obstruct means when you have for example, you're driving down the road and somebody's put up a barrier and says, take a detour, you can't go this way. That's an obstruction. That's to obstruct. And then the noun form is obstruction. Obstruction. D, you got this, away from, and the IVE at the end, so destructive. That means that something is ruining your building here. You're trying to build something and this is destructive. That could be a tornado, something that is destructive. Now we go down to B and we have dict and dict. That means to say or to tell. And so first of all, we have indicate, and that means to say or tell something. I like to, actually what I would use this for is like weather vane on the house, it tells you what direction, it indicates what direction, it tells you, it indicates what direction the wind is going or coming from. And that gives you an indication, the noun form. And the weather vane on top of the house, where I grew up, was a little, I think it was a chicken, I can't remember something, maybe it was an arrow on top of our barn that told us the direction the wind was going. And okay, we're down here. So that would be an indicator. It's an agent. It's not a person, but it's still an agent that shows. And then you have dedicate. And dedicate is when you dedicate something. Say you build a building and you dedicate it. You build a church. You dedicate it to God. You build a library. You may dedicate it to the person that donated money for the library. Now, number 2, you have dict, and the first one is dictate. When you dictate something, a perfect example for us is spelling. If I was to dictate the word dictate, I would say spell dictate. Then you would say dictate, D-I-C-T-A-T-E, dictate, and that's the way you do spelling. Then you got in here and dictate and T-I-O-N. Now you have dictation, and that's the noun form. So once you get done writing your spelling word, or we're down here. I look up for just a second. Okay, here we go back. Dictate, we did dictate. The next one was dictator. That's where I should be. Okay, dictator is a agent, right? Someone who does something. And so a dictator is someone who dictates. Well, now in this case, it has a different meaning than what I used before. Here, dictate is to say something, somebody writes it down. On the other hand, a dictator is somebody that says something that you have to do because they are in control of the country. And a dictator does not have to answer to anybody else. Whatever he says goes. In some ways, very similar to a king, except it's not an inherited authority. Then we have a dictionary, and I have right here beside me, I pull it off the shelf, I have my American Heritage Dictionary. It's a very good one. There's a Webster Dictionary, which is also very good, which is what I used in college. And practically every day I look up a word in my dictionary, which explains why that I know more and more words. Because I'm not handicapped. When I hear a word I don't know, I don't say, well, what is it? Or ask somebody else. I can look it up in a dictionary. So when you were younger, you ask your teacher and they told you what the words are. But when you get older, you become independent when you have a dictionary. So using the dictionary is an essential. And interestingly, and I think I can show you. No, I can't do that. I actually have a dictionary on my computer, so when I'm sitting here reading something I don't know, I just click on the dictionary, type it in. But you still should know how to use a printed dictionary. Now, predict, pre means before and dict means to say, so predict literally means to say before. And so I look out the window now and I say, not a cloud in the sky. I predict that it's not going to rain today. And that then leads to the noun form prediction. I just made a prediction. The word diction explains how you speak. It's kind of like when you speak a dialect, maybe your diction. And when you dictate and then you have dictation. Years ago, they had dictation machines, and then later they called them recorders. You would write a message or record a message for your secretary and give it to her. Then she would sit down and type up what you said. when my wife was in college, she took shorthand, Greg's shorthand, and shorthand is a way to write very fast. And so instead of using regular letters, you have various lines that stand for sounds. And so they would take dictation, and their boss would dictate a message, and they would sit down there and write it in shorthand, and then they would go back and retype it. And the verb form dictating, you put a present ing indicates present participle. And so the boss was dictating a dictation to his secretary who wrote it down. Then you have valedictorian. A valedictorian is a person who's done really well in their high school or college class, and they're a student who is asked to have one of the speeches at the end. So he'll get up, and generally they will thank the teachers, administrators, and their parents, and then they'll address their classmates that are graduating with them, and even the undergraduates to continue on. But anyway, those that are graduating to them to use what they have learned to accomplish great things in their lives. Dictatorial, this goes back to dictator up here, and it's a person who is dictatorial acts like a dictator, and they run everything and they consult nobody. They just do what they want to do. Then we have a dict. Now there's a good this is a good illustration, because I know how to use the word dictum in a sentence, but I wasn't sure of the meaning of it. And so I turned to my dictionary, and I'm looking, when I go this way, I'm looking at I have another screen over here. So I have my dictionary on that screen, and it says dictum. It's a noun, a formal pronouncement from an authoritative source. And it literally comes from the Latin word something said, dictum. And so the example they give is the First Amendment dictum that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Okay? And so that is a dictum. Now, contra means against, and dict means to say. So contradict is to say something against somebody. Say I look out and I say, there's no clouds, it's not going to rain today. And a friend says, yeah, but I saw the weather and it's going to rain later today. So that was they contradicted me, and that would be a contradiction. Next, we have an edict. Notice we have the E right there is going to be long, edict. And according to my dictionary, which I looked up, the E on the front of that is an abbreviation for ek, which means out. And so edict means is a combination of out and to tell. And so it is a noun and is an official order or proclamation by a person in authority. The king made an edict that everybody was supposed to eat spinach in his realm. That's an edict. Kind of a silly one, huh? Edict. I made an edict in my family that everybody was supposed to eat spinach, but it didn't go over very well. I hope you like spinach. It's good for you. Next we have indict. And here the I is going to be long in, and indict means it's to formally accuse or charge of a serious crime. His former manager was indicted for fraud, and you'll often hear they're trying to indict presidents or other people. So it's an accusation of a serious crime. Indict. And other words are indictment, anyway, then we have a verdict. And this is really interesting. I had to look it up in a dictionary. Again, I can use it in a sentence. The jury gave a verdict of not guilty, for example, in a court trial. But it's very interesting because VER comes from the, it comes from Anglo-Norman French verdict, which is from the Old French, and then from Latin, which versus, plus dict, from the Latin words saying, or true. Okay, so ver here actually means true, and dict means to say, so verdict means literally to say the truth. It is a decision on a disputed issue in a civil or criminal court or an inquest, and is also an opinion or a judgment. The example sentences: the jury returned a verdict of not guilty, and or I am anxious to know your verdict on me. What do you think? What do you think about me? So that's an interesting one, that even though I've read English for 70 years, I had to look this word up in a dictionary to know the origin of ver as being a word for truth. And I think it's probably related to words like veracity, which means a person's telling the truth, veracity. Okay, so we got all these words. Main thing is, remember, when you see STRU or STRUT, you're talking about some kind of a building or structure. It can be physical or it can just be mental. And then DIC or DICT has the idea, somewhere related in there, are to say or to tell. Best of luck. Now I think we're really going to enjoy seeing how these work out in sentences. So let's go to lesson 36.